So, we all need to take a step back and ask ourselves the important question. How did we as a collective community sleep on the do-over Damsel? There's now 3 episodes out of this one, and while I'm not going to say it's anime of the season, this ain't no Orbs Movements of the Earth, but this is one of the most fun shows I am watching this season. The Reddit threads barely get any discussion. I think I've had maybe a collective 2 or 3 people even recommend this show to me. We all slept on this one. And for the rare people who checked it out from episode 1, I give you props. This show is incredible, and I'm not going to deny, at face value, it does look a little sus. Thankfully, I'm proud to admit that the sus allegations are just allegations, and that the MC, or at least one of the MCs, Emperor Hades, did not attend any Diddy parties. He's very much a clean individual, and I firmly believe that. We'll get into that later. But if you've seen the show Seventh Time Loop the Villainess, there's a similar intro hook with our MC Jill. Ends up getting killed, starts back handful of years before all of the craziness occurred. And in her initial loop, she ends up, marrying who should be the love of her life, the perfect relationship, and he turned out to be a Jaime Lannister sister-banging freakoid who he attended Diddy parties for sure and just went off the rails. So on her, her loop here, she basically tries to avoid him at all costs and declares her love and marriage to a different person, doesn't see who it is, and it turns out to be, from at least at face value, the second worst option, because this emperor goes completely off the rails. Very quickly we learn he's the nicest cinnamon roll, and he's more of a little brother than anything, and you definitely question, how could someone as lovely as this be turned so evil? And over these 3 episodes, they answer actually quite a bit fairly quickly. The way they can go so brutal, while simultaneously having this chibi aesthetic when it goes a little more silly. There's so many minds that this show could have stepped on and blew itself up in the face, but after I've watched 3 episodes, I started yesterday on Patreon, watched episode 1, watched episode 2 and 3 today, loved watching it, and since it airs on a Wednesday, I'm hoping I can do it on YouTube too, because this show legitimately could be one of the most interesting to follow. To see how they've developed this show over 3 episodes. To put Jill as a character best, she's what happens if One Punch Man meets Tanya from Saga of Tanya the Evil, just instead of Tanya being borderline crazy Nazi, just very lovely general. Merge them into one, you get, I shit you not, she picked up a boat, threw the boat, and this ain't no sailboat, this was a giant ass boat, and punched a cannonball out of thin air. Please, for the love of God, go watch this, because this is incredible. So, there is an element of sus. So, there is a massive age gap between the 2 people who are basically getting married. No one gonna deny that. During the first episode, I chalked it up to, well, at the end of the day, with fantasy shows, especially medieval, I mean, if you've ever actually read the Game of Thrones books, I mean, it's easy to forget just how young the characters are when you see a character like Arya and stuff, or Sansa from Game of Thrones, because their actors age. They don't age that much in the books. They're like 8 to 10 years old. It's pretty messed up. So initially I'm chalking it up to that. I'm saying to myself, okay, Hades as an emperor seems very wholesome. So hopefully we're not going to, no matter what, it's going to feel like grooming allegations no matter what. But pretty quickly you start to realize the whole reason for him is like, he's probably more interested in the magic side of things than a physical connection. And for her, it's about protecting herself and her family from the future. But over episode 2 and 3, you start realizing that, there's a lot more going on here than you first realize. I do think a mixture of it is we get the confirmation. He needs someone who can see the dragon, which flies around, which his current fiancée, Sphere, can't do, but she seems like a lovely individual. Apparently goes off the deep end and brutally kills everyone in the future. Once again, doesn't give you the impression in present day, so what the hell happens in the future? There's so many little things, like the main character that she's engaged with, or married in by name, it's hard to say, has a curse that every time, so he was basically disowned. He wasn't meant to have the throne because his mother, basically a concubine, and everyone else came before. And every time his birthday hit, one of the successors who was above him brutally died. Some hung themselves, some did this or that. It was brutal, to the point that eventually the king got so scared he forced him as the heir, and then disappeared, and then his mother killed herself. He is cursed to the point that something wants him on the throne. Now, it's not the little dragon that flies around us, talking dragon, fantastic and adorable mind, but it's pretty messed up. You have his fiancée who is so devoted to him, but she can't see the dragon, so obviously she wouldn't be a good fit. And based on his interaction when he was so happy that, you know, Jill ended up picking him, obviously on one hand, it's like, you know, at first I'm thinking, oh, it's because, like, probably no one's ever wanted him. But that's not the case, because his supposed to be his fiance very much is very devoted to him. So it does seem like it's a magical thing. He needs someone who can see the dragon, but also probably is magically capable. And it's probably going to be a situation similar to a lot of shows where magic at a young age is easier to craft and hone to where you need it to be versus someone who's older in their life and is trying to catch up. Like, think of Rick from Osa Newbie Adventure. He's past his prime, can't really change where he's at, versus someone who is probably like 10 years older or something like that. That's kind of the direction I'm getting. And while I don't expect it to happen, there's actually a slim possibility the author will very much bamboozle us and make it so Sphere as well as Hades end up together and Jill's just their child. Because honestly, that is an actual possibility. Now, what I actually believe will happen is that, yes, when she's older, she will actually fall in love with this guy and, you know, whatever happens will happen. But out of all the sus things anime can do, they surprisingly avoided the Diddy Party allegations. And, you know, as much as at first I wanted to have Chris Hansen tell this man to take a seat, he doesn't have a sexual bone in his body. Let's be 100% honest here right now. Like, he's very much just like, she calls him a little brother in either the second or third episode, and it's just, that's the best way to explain it. The story is engaging. You had the loot mechanic. You have the and I love the fact that it's not just him seemingly being really nice, even though he's evil bastard in the future. It's also, you know, his fiance as well. And there's probably going to be a lot of those situations. And the idea that ultimately, you know, they end the third episode in this beautiful way. And it seemingly avoided the big thing that caused him to go evil in the future, or at least the first stepping block that caused him. So the father of Sphere, that is, basically set up a whole situation to screw him over. And it seems like, based on his reaction at the end, because of how everything developed, he wouldn't have to go as evil as he probably was about to be forced to. So because of how everything was situated, and I mean, honestly, they sent a dragon to attack our girl, and he came in saying, "I'm the Dragon Emperor, bow to me, bitch." It was badass. But it seems like because the fact that we avoided this first thing, it's not like there's not going to be more moments across the show, but the fact that we already have a taste of probably one of the first big moments that forced him to be more aggressive, even though this dude just wants to bake half the time, you really get a good sense of where the show wants to go. Great characterization, love the art direction. I don't know if I'm the only one feeling it, but it very much gives me a similar vibe to Talentless Nana, especially when they go into the more simplified art direction. Love it. Voice actors, music, it is so good. And I think it really helps having to watch 3 episodes pretty much in a row, because I think if I would have been left off with episode 1, I probably would have had more questions about the age gap thing. But seeing episodes 2 and 3, I really don't get the impression he's anywhere close to being actually interested there. She's doing it to protect herself and hopefully her family. He's doing it probably for a magical side of things. And the fact that Sphere is also a very nice person, this cast is fantastic. Let me know what you've been thinking of the show, whether you checked it out because I made this video or you've been watching it. How are you feeling about this? Because I definitely think it's one of the most enjoyable watches of the season, hands down. Thoughts down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, ring that bell. And like I mentioned, we have full live reactions over on Patreon. And hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we got Bassman 280. Waka, Merc, Sebastian Just, Fear Machine, Keegan Miller, and we also have Rene Bredhoff. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and you all have a good one.